Welcome everyone to our 9:30 a.m. session, AI for a Better World. We're joined today by Gabe Dalporto, the CEO of Udacity. Welcome, Gabe, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Well, look, I think I'm going to take a little bit different tack than some of the other speakers so far in this conference. By now, you've probably heard a lot about how AI and machine learning will disrupt nearly all facets of the world economy, how it will fundamentally change how consumers are delivered tailored products and solutions, how AI and machine learning will automate production of just about everything, how AI can take over not just repetitive tasks like accounting, but also some really interesting tasks like driving cars and vehicles and drones and everything in between, how it may help fight terrorism, avoid costly failures of oil rigs, reduce pesticide use in agriculture, and many more applications. And that is all undoubtedly true. But I'm here to talk about a couple of things. First, which is really the flip side of automation and AI, which is how that will massively and negatively affect everyday workers whose livelihoods will be fundamentally changed or taken away. And secondly, and somewhat ironically, the acute labor shortage for high-tech skills, and particularly AI and analytical skills, and how if we don't do something to solve that, we will not realize the full potential of AI and machine learning. So these skill gaps really threaten to disrupt digital transformation at organizations. And interestingly, those two are not independent. You have, on the one hand, workers losing their jobs, on the other hand, not enough talent in high-tech skills. And I think that the solution is really leveraging one to upskill one into the other. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. So I promise you this does have a happy ending, but it'll be very messy in the middle. So first, let's actually talk about a story. And about a decade ago, our founder, Sebastian Thrun at Udacity, who also is colloquially known as the founder of the self-driving car, won DARPA Challenge in 2005, built the first truly autonomous self-driving car, and then went on to found Waymo within Google, was teaching a course at Stanford on AI. And he decided to put that course online. And Stanford was very unhappy about this. They didn't want to do it, but he did it anyway. And he got 160,000 enrollees in the first week. 23,000 of them graduated his entire Stanford course, same grading, same project, same everything. And the #1 Stanford student scored number 413 in the class. And this was a giant epiphany moment that this highly specialized field such as AI, like you didn't need to be the best of the best student at Stanford to be successful in learning some of these skill sets. Now, this is really, I think, relevant today because there's literally not enough AI engineers in the world. And it's going to be very, very tough to fill that demand. But literally, you had stay-at-home moms in Pakistan beating out the best Stanford student. So it really, I think, gives me optimism that we can train the next workforce and kind of army of engineers for the future. So what is the giant societal problem we're facing here? According to McKinsey, 800, and this is pre-COVID, 800 million jobs will be lost due to AI, machine learning, and automation by 2030. An additional 375 million people will have the fundamental nature of their jobs disrupted. So that's a third of the world's workforce. And if I take a little aside here, I grew up in rural West Virginia. And at the time in the 70s and 80s, they had a pretty vibrant economy based on natural resources and good middle class livings could be made. When that industry automated and when the state didn't reskill its workers, I saw firsthand what happened. When I go back today, the towns are boarded up, the country clubs are shut down, and people who are working, are basically working in minimum wage service industry jobs. So if you think you've seen societal unrest today, you've seen nothing yet when 1 billion people are out of work. On the other hand, at the same time, enterprises are laying off tons and tons of people through automation. They literally cannot hire enough people, on the other hand, to drive those digital transformations. There's $1.4 trillion spent today on digital transformation across Fortune 500 Global 2000 type companies. That's going to grow 17% per year over the next 5 years. And talent shortage is ranked the #1 risk to organizational change among large enterprises. Now, COVID has done nothing but accelerate that process. 40 million people plus have filed for unemployment over the last 4 months. Unemployment peaked, depending on how you count it, around 20%. Now it's down a little bit, but I don't think that this story is fully told yet. Many companies are on the verge of bankruptcy. Many positions have or will be automated. And if anything, digital transformation is accelerating. A recent survey of Fortune 500 companies said the one area where they're increasing budgets is in digital transformation. So these jobs are gone. And at the same time, corporate training has changed and education has fundamentally changed forever. I literally cannot imagine a Fortune 500 company in the next year flying in an instructor from God knows where to jam 50 people in a classroom and train them. That's just not safe, and it's not going to happen. So online training is facing like a really positive revolution. Digital transformation is accelerating. And so a lot's going to happen over the next 5 years. And it's not just going to be blue collar workers. Obviously, like 9% of workers in the United States are, cab drivers, truck drivers, and professional drivers. Those jobs are going to be gone, but also accountants. So we work with a top 5 accounting firm, reskilling their workforce, and our students have literally in their capstone projects in our courses written apps that save millions of man hours of work in accounting, right? So accountants are going to be disrupted. AI can read cancer off an X-ray better than a doctor can. Bankers, like a lot of trading is going algorithmic and automated. So the list goes on, but a lot of high-paying, high-skilled jobs are actually being disrupted. And so this is kind of a really global problem. Now, the silver lining here is that AI and machine learning is expected to create quite a few jobs and high-paying jobs. So 133 million new jobs, according to the World Economic Forum. And as I mentioned, digital transformation spending will hit 2.3 trillion over the next 10 years. And the #1 demand area really is in AI-related careers, with a 74% annual growth projected year over year. And manufacturers are projected to spend 26 billion in upskilling workers alone. So there's opportunity and there's mass disruption, and somehow that gap needs to be bridged. Now Udacity went out and spoke with our enterprise clients. Our biggest business is working with enterprises to reskill their employee bases. And we did a survey and we said, well, what's going on here? Literally 83% of them said they had a troubling skills gap. 70% said talent shortage is preventing innovation. Right, that's their lifeblood is innovation. 70% says talent shortage is preventing innovation, and 52% of Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies said reskilling and upskilling and emerging technology is their top priority. And the #1 role they can't fill is AI machine learning, followed closely by cloud, followed by data science, followed by digital analytics. So 3 of the top 4 data driven. Now, if you look at the World Economic Forum data, top emerging technologies and skill sets, literally the top 10 emerging jobs are all in data and AI, right? So clearly there's a tremendous amount of demand here. And 3 of the top 5 skills are, again, data and AI. So we basically have this massive inability to fill the demand for enterprise AI, machine learning, data type jobs. Now, we did some more research and we asked, what are the barriers to AI adoption in your organization? And the #1 thing, as we've kind of mentioned here, is skills of staff. They just don't have enough people to do it. And data quality is kind of, call it the #3 factor. The #2 factor is really, they don't really know how to use it either. And so you have like a leadership problem of how do you train leaders who over the last 20 or 30 years have grown up in their careers on the technologies of the past and facing this revolution. How do you expose them to the potential and capabilities and the best application of AI in their organization? But then once they're exposed and they have a plan, how do you actually hire these people is in a way a bigger issue. And I got a couple of quotes here, but one from the CTO of Accenture is, the buy versus build talent strategy is getting more difficult and expensive to pull off. Executives have this idea that as my people become obsolete, I'll just hire new people. Well, they won't be there. So this is the biggest barrier between the potential of AI and the reality of AI, is the ability to get talent out there in market. Similarly, Gardner said organizations cannot rely on talent strategy that depends on hiring talent. And developing existing employees will have to be a major component going forward. And in a similar story here, we're running out of workers, right? So this is, I think, what I would pose to this conference is it's not just what the technology can do, but you need people to do the technology, and that's the critical enabler. So how do you reskill 1 billion people or 100 million people? If you tried to reskill 1 billion people on the university system, you would not just break the university system, you would probably bankrupt the world. At $100,000 a pop in the United States, there's just not enough money in the world to reskill people on that magnitude. And the problem is it's very expensive. It's 2 and 4 year degrees, so it's slow. It's synchronous, it's on premises, and often, is theoretical over practical. So when you graduate, you still got a lot of skills to learn. And by the way, like the #1 college at a university I recently spoke to was journalism. And so you're going to graduate with journalism degrees, and no offense to journalists, but like there's no jobs in journalism. And so the university system just isn't set up to reskill at mass scale in these careers of the future. Udacity, as we said, helped create a category called MOOCs a decade ago. We are no longer a MOOC. We've changed substantially. But the problem with MOOCs is you could get that content for free, but it's very shallow learning. You're watching videos, you're doing a few quizzes, but you don't learn karate by doing or learn karate by watching Bruce Lee movies. You learn karate by doing karate, and that's really what's missing from MOOCs. Boot camps actually solve that, which is they're somewhat shorter. They do deliver like employable practitioner level skills. They're still very expensive, $10,000 to $20,000 a pop, and they're still very, very unscalable. They're synchronous, they're on premises, they require a very heavy hand from instructors. And then there's a final category, which I think really is the future and where we're seeing a lot of investment, across the venture world as well as corporations, is in these kind of like skills-based training programs, which is what Udacity is. And, if you think about Udacity, we really start with an employable job resume, and people like us start with an employable job resume and work backwards. Very project-based learning, get your hands dirty in code, apply it to real world situations, and you come out, in 3 to 6 months, part-time for about $1,000, delivered asynchronously, massively scalable, with machine learning skills, with data analytics skills, with software development skills, cloud computing skills. Now, you don't have to trust me. President Trump just signed an executive order demanding the single largest employer in the United States, which is the federal government, prioritize skills-based training over degrees. So this really is where the world is going. This is happening in the United States. I'm on a board with the World Economic Forum. It's happening through the World Economic Forum. And really, we're moving towards a skills-based employment economy. And according to the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board, where we're on, and the World Economic Forum board, where we are on, there's kind of like 5 main pillars to helping the world make this transition and getting people into these future forward jobs much more efficiently and much more quickly and more scalably. And the first is really the acceptance of skills-based hiring over degree-based hiring. That is moving very rapidly. Developing a global skills taxonomy. So you know what you're really hiring for, and you know the skills you need, and you can pick and choose those skills from people as opposed to degrees. Standard recognized credentialing, so that there's quality control. If I have a credential, what does that really mean? Is it high quality? Is it low quality? So standardizing that process of credentialing, but not through like the traditional accreditation university system. Portability and transferability of skills through interoperable learning records. And so there's a big technology component to this where your skills are going to be entered into a record that is your record that follows you from job to job. right? So it's no longer going to be controlled by an employer or something else. You will actually own that record. It'll be transferable digitally. And then finally, there needs to be funding. There needs to be major public and private financing and investments in skills-based platforms. And this needs to be something of a Marshall Plan. So a real good question here, which I get often is, that's nice, but does it work? And so, for example, in our AI for Healthcare nano degree, literally your first project, you teach AI how to recognize pneumonia off of chest x-rays. Now, it's a skill that's directly applicable to maybe COVID diagnostic and treatment, but this is real world skills. In our self-driving car nano degree, you literally in your capstone project upload your code into our self-driving car, and it drives around a course, it avoids obstacles, it stops in red and goes on green. That's not a MOOC, it's not light learning, that's heavy learning, it's direct applicable job skills. The same is true in like oil rig workers, the same is true in solar workers. There's a lot of skills platforms out there that are very focused on delivering real employable, hireable job skills and helping people transition from the jobs of the past into the jobs of the future. So to kind of wrap things up, I really kind of have a challenge and a call to action, which is we need like a Manhattan Project type investment to develop AI skills across society, so that we can fully achieve AI's promise for the future. And we need to get individuals who don't have those skills into the right skill sets. We need companies to make major investments in their employees, and they're doing that. Companies spend something like $300 billion a year on upskilling. And as I say, that's our biggest source of business, is working with them to help upskill their employees on mission critical applications like digital transformation. Governments need to invest and not make, we spend something like $60 billion a year on universities. I love universities. I'm a beneficiary of the university system. It does amazing things in creating well-rounded individuals, but it doesn't get you a job today. And governments need to make that funding available to skills-based programs. And we need, affordable, scalable online solutions to get people trained. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
Thank you, Gabe. That was really fascinating. We have a lot of really exciting questions from the audience. I'll start with the first one. Can Udacity be a useful tool as part of a traditional high school curriculum, especially now that most students are at home? And kind of tag teaming another question, how can we foster collaborative learning in these times too?
Yeah, so I do believe that is true. So we have worked with the government, for example, the government of Egypt, to do kind of at-scale training programs, exposing high school students to software development. We got like 95% graduation rates from those programs. They were super successful. So yes, we're also starting to partner with a lot of universities to either supplement their existing curriculum. So if they don't have an AI school, they can take some of our programs and give credit for them. But universities also are trying to bridge the gap between university education and employment. So we're working with them on that dimension, and also work with lifeline graduates and lifeline learners among their alumni. So I think there is a great opportunity to partner and reach kind of a later stage of high school. There's a great opportunity to partner and reach students, university and beyond.
Makes sense. You mentioned previously that some companies are saying that they don't really get enough talent right now. How are they measuring this, and how effective do you think AI will be to close this resource gap, or maybe even work to broaden it in some ways?
So companies are struggling pretty significantly, and specifically they're struggling in the technical skill sets to go through digital transformation. How do you automate your supply chain? How do you predict demand? How do you bring your experience from retail to online? How do you serve the right product? Every aspect of an organization can be, almost every aspect can be digitized. But there's just literally not enough people with these skill sets. And specifically, there's not enough people in data analytics, decision science, AI and machine learning. And so really what we need is, effective training to get more and more workers there. So I don't think AI is a solution. AI is a solution for digital transformation, but you can't implement it if you don't have the right talent.
Right. And kind of along those same lines, how is AI augmenting or transforming the field of managing people and managing businesses?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. For example, in HR and, oh, sorry, I should have ended my presentation. HR and recruiting is a great, great example of that. So there's a company called Eightfold who is built an AI engine that will scrape like LinkedIn profiles, job resumes within companies, job postings within companies, and it does an AI-driven algorithmic matching of which of your employees could actually theoretically match this job opening within your company, or as you're screening candidates, who's most likely to have the right skills taxonomy. So I think that's just one example of leveraging AI and technology to match people, for example, with the right jobs. Whereas before you might have said, well, okay, here's your resume and you don't have that checkbox. But if you can actually use AI to infer skill sets, then infers applicability to a job, and it really expands your talent pool. And I think that's just one example of a great use case.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And as someone who's pretty close to the matter, what are the risks associated with this kind of digitization of learning? And can AI provide recommendations to maybe retrain or rehire employees? And how do you see that direction going?
Yeah, so like I just kind of mentioned, absolutely AI can be really helpful in predicting where you're going to be successful. So mapping out that career transition is super helpful. What was the first part of the question again, please?
How can we manage the risks associated with this kind of digitization of learning?
Yeah, so as you're seeing today, really acutely, the world was totally unprepared for digital learning. And as schools, primary schools, high schools, universities went online, they had no choice but to go online. So they just did the best they could. And some of them did it really well, and some of them did it terribly. I can tell you, my kids go to two different schools. They're different ages. And one school just knocked it out of the park, and the other school did not terribly. And so the risk is, everything has to be online now. So the risk is really bad execution. You have to think about online education as a completely different way of delivery. And we've thought about it differently. So instead of like hour-long lectures followed by homework, we literally have like 5-minute video lectures followed by immediate hands-on keys coding, reinforcement learning, and then a short lecture, code, short lecture, code. That's a very different way of teaching than like talking in front of a classroom for an hour, right? So I think we're going to have to learn as a society, delivering online the way you delivered in person doesn't work as well, and you got to come up with new ways to deliver. And project-based learning is so important to this.
Yep, that was definitely a core tenet of my studies at MIT. And I guess we'll close out with one last question, and this one's about Udacity. So where do you see most of the students of Udacity going? What do they go on to do after taking some of these courses?
Yeah, so for example, we worked with kind of 6 governments around the world to give scholarships and retrain workforces, and we see something like 75% of them have positive career outcomes. That means they either got a job in a new field, got a promotion, were able to do their job more effectively, and so it's kind of when we look at our data about it's kind of 40-40-20. 40% of the people who take these classes want to change the nature of their job. 40% of the people want to use this training to get ahead and get a promotion. And 20% just want to learn. Like we've had people who've taken literally 10 nanodegrees on our platform and learned everything from like software development to self-driving cars to drones, everything in between. And so people have different motivations, but the majority either want to get ahead in their career or to make a transition into a new, better, more interesting career.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, I think we're almost out of time. So thank you so much for your time today, Gabe, and your really insightful presentation. I know we had a really engaged audience, and you can always continue the discussion on the MIT CNC Slack channel. So thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, if you're joining for the next session, Impactful AI, Creating the World We Want to See, that will start in 5 minutes.